Hi, I'm Mark Wybrow and this is the Electronic Cafe, the channel for the lovers of electronic music.
And I'm Andy McNabb, so let's get started. So welcome to another brilliant interview edition of the Electronic Cafe. We've been fortunate enough to have one legend on the show in Rusty Egan. In this episode, we have another legend, hailed as one of the godfathers of electronic music. Mark and I were lucky enough to get some time with Mark REEDER a few weeks ago. Absolute gent. For those who don't know him, Manchester born and bred, but lived in Berlin for most of his life. An extraordinary career. And just done some of the most amazing production and remixes and interpretations of tracks you'll ever hear in your lifetime. So when he said he'd come on, Mark and I were absolutely so pleased that he agreed to come on, and what a lovely guy he is. So sit back, relax, get to know Mr. REEDER and the genius of his musical work, as we'll interweave some of his music throughout this whole episode. So enjoy. You miss playing live in a band?
No.
No. Very honest answer. I'm glad you had to think about that. Hey everyone, so welcome to this, a very special interview edition of the Electronic Cafe. I'm delighted to say that we have an amazing legend of the industry in terms of producer, musician, and for me does some of the best remixes on the planet, Mr. Mark REEDER. Mark, welcome to the Electronic Cafe, my friend.
Hello, Andy. Hello, Mark.
Hi, Mark.
Really happy to be on your podcast. It's really, really good. I was going to say show then, but it is a show for me, actually.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks for agreeing to talk to us. I really appreciate it. Really,
I enjoy watching it, and I enjoy what you do. And it's like I thought, that's nice. And then you asked me to be on it, so I couldn't say no.
Oh, excellent! Thank you.
Very honoured, mate. And congrats on Subversiv-Dekadent. Absolutely brilliant album. We'd love to talk about that a little bit later, but I want to kind of go right back. Manchester to Berlin. How did that happen? Can you let our guys know how that journey for you, how it unfolded?
Well, I didn't plan to live in Berlin. I just went hitchhiked to Berlin, and because I was curious about what it was all about, and I just ended up here. And I came to this city that was like no other place I'd ever even seen really for that much. I'd been to Germany before, like 2 years before, and saw West Germany, and asked around what's Berlin like, and people kind of, you don't want to go there. But I was curious because like Bowie had recorded here, obviously, and Iggy Pop and stuff, and I was like, exactly. There must be something about Berlin. So I just got on the train actually, and went to Hamburg, and then I hitched from Hamburg to Berlin, and it was like wow, and I just was so curious about the east part really, because nobody knew anything about that. No one could tell me anything about that. That I just stayed and just never left.
Wow.
And I actually came here to see if I could find records, like old, krautrock records that probably, it's like if people don't go to Berlin, then the record shops might have some old records that I might want, Popple Vuh records or something.
Right.
And that's exactly what I did,
So that was 1978, I think you went to Berlin, did you?
Yeah, 1978, yeah.
And you've pretty much been there since 1978.
Yeah, I've been here all the time,
Wow. And I know you became a rep for Factory Records, right? Promoting.
Well, it was
is that right?
Rob Gretton's idea. It was like, it's like, well, you're in Berlin. Yeah, you can be our for Joy Division, you can be our promoter. I mean, I knew Rob and I knew it before,
Yeah, sure.
and it was like, now you're there. Maybe you can get a gig and stuff. And so I'm thinking, yeah, right, So I was like their kind of man in Berlin, really. And then when Tony started Factory Records, and I knew Tony as well, so he was like, all right, you've seen that Mark's in Berlin, you can, be our representative. And he always said it looked really good on paper, so he had, Manchester, New York, Brussels, Berlin. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. And look, me and Mark are massive. I mean, my favourite band of all time, if you ask me, has always been Joy Division. So was there always that? So when you were out there, was there a big appetite for those bands in that part?
No. Not at all. Not at all. Not at all. No one was interested at all. I was like, Robert sent me like boxes of records, which had, sent to all the media, the magazines and the radio stations and stuff, in the hope that they'd kind of get some kind of recognition, but nothing, absolutely nothing. I think maybe one person played the record on the radio show. Wow. And it was only when they released Transmission that I managed to get someone at one of the radio stations to play that, because I'd managed to get them a gig at the Camp Kino. I've been trying. I thought, people don't really get this Joy Division thing, and I thought they needed to see them perform live to be able to understand what it was like. And I thought it just fits in perfectly with the city. And at the beginning, because the records weren't very well produced, the first Ideal for Living single was really rubbish, and it was only when they'd made Unknown Pleasures that they started to get a little bit of kind of like favourable reviews in the media, like in the NME and stuff like that. And I was able to go with that to the Camp Kino, to Connie Konchak, and say, look, they've got good review. And he was like, oh, yeah, maybe. And then I heard some people in Holland were doing a tour, and I said, well, these people are doing a tour. They're going to be in Cologne. It's not very far. And I said to Rob, it's not very far, Berlin to Cologne. It was very far. And they came, and played this gig in the Camp Kino. And it was a terrible flop because only 58 people came.
Wow.
But they loved it. Joy Division loved it because it was like typical for, they'd only been playing to that kind of audience anyway in the UK. And it was only after Unknown Pleasures came out that they started getting a larger audience. But other than that, it's like, they thought it was great. It was really kind of edgy atmosphere as well. So.
The Joy Division live sounded a lot harder and punkier than they did on the records. Because I went to a couple of years back, I went to a playback of Unknown Pleasures with Hooky was there, and he was talking about it, and he said that when they first heard Unknown Pleasures recorded, the whole band was disappointed that it didn't sound anything like them live, but they realised now that it was kind of future-proofed and it's become this masterpiece that it is. But they were saying that it didn't really capture their live sound.
Well, a lot of bands fall into that trap, really. Yeah. They feel that the live performance has a certain sort of like atmosphere, generates certain energy or whatever. But that doesn't necessarily always translate onto a vinyl record, or a record for that matter. It's like you want an album should be something that people can kind of like absorb and have the atmosphere. It's different to the live performance. I mean, that's what I like about the difference between a live gig and an album. I don't really want the album to sound exactly like the live gig, unless it's a live album. So it's like when I'm producing a band, it's like I try and explain to them, you've got your album, which is the thing which is going to stand a test of time, and you've got your live performances, which is your adaptation of whatever it is you've recorded in a live setting, and you can change that and adapt that over the years, so that if you can refresh it even, but your albums will always remain what it is. It'll never change, and it's that forever. And it's actually a snapshot of how you are right now. And it's not easy to kind of explain this to bands because most bands don't understand it. They want it sounded just like live, And I can understand that they were very kind of like disappointed that it didn't sound anything like the live performances. But
you've got the enviable position of saying you saw them live. I mean, that was my biggest. If you said there's one band I could go back in time for me, So amazing. And I know you started your career like playing in bands like Frantic Elevators. Mick Hucknall was in that, right?
Yeah, Mick Hucknall was our singer.
Right.
Yeah. And Ian Moss was our guitarist.
Yeah.
He's brother of Neil Moss, who has this label called German Shepherd, and he used to be in he was in a couple of punk bands as well. He went to see Sex Pistols as well, and it was like we like I played in a band before that, Joe Stallion's Red Star Radio Band, and we never have a singer, and I left because I got bored because we weren't writing our own songs. The guitarist just wanted to play the guitar solo from Freebird, and I was bored, and so I left. And the minute I left, Mick Hucknall joined the band, and he did like 2 gigs, and then he saw the Sex Pistols, and it was like, I've seen the future. Do you want to form a punk band? And so we formed this punk band, which we called the Frantic Elevators.
Nice.
Was that the Free Trade Hall gig, was it?
The List of Free Trade Hall gig, yeah.
Nice.
I don't know which one it was, to be honest. I don't know if it was the first one, the second one, because there's Buzzcocks gig too. But I don't know if it was the 4th of June gig, but I'm not too sure. It could have been. Yeah.
I mean, those two gigs, I mean, so many people were there that decided to form bands. I mean, you had Bucky and Barney were there, decided to form a band. I think Morrissey was there, decided to form a band. You know, they've gone down in folklore, haven't they, those 2 shows?
Well, it was an expression at that moment of energy, you know, like the albums that were being released at that time were like, you know, Animals by Pink Floyd or Tales from Topographic Oceans, things like this, you know what I mean? It was like triple albums and stuff. And it was all this kind of boring progressive stuff, which was going really nowhere. And it didn't really kind of reflect this feeling that these younger people had at the time, you know, like myself, you know, like being 18 was like, you didn't know what you were going to do with your life. You know, most people, I was really lucky because I had a job, but like, you know, most people had no idea what the futures were going to be. And suddenly this music came, which kind of just like was 2 minutes and it's over and it's like, fuck off kind of thing. And it was like, yeah, that's just like how I feel. And it just kind of represented something which kind of electrified a whole young generation of people. And the thing that the major record labels, the industry had kind of kept from people was the fact that you could do it yourself. It's like, you know, they tried to explain to people that, you know, you need to be a virtuoso at your art and stuff. And it was all very kind of corporate and that you would never be able to go anywhere unless you had a record deal and everything. And it was suddenly you could do it yourself. You could make your own record. You could press your own record, and you didn't need the major record labels. And that was frightening for the major record labels. Yeah. And it was also frightening for all those big acts like Led Zeppelin and, you know, Yes and Pink Floyd. They were horrified. They were horrified at punk rock because they didn't know how to handle it.
Going through your music, like band stuff, there's Sharp Vegas, and I found a track, Pretenders of Love. Oh, mate, what a song. Amazing. Do you miss playing live in a band?
No.
No, very honest answer. I'm glad you had to think about that. Passionate nights, you started with a shy caress. Day after day, it gets stronger. Can't you feel it as well? How long can we pretend it's not love?
It was like I didn't really want to do it in the first place, to be honest. It was just being very, very drunk one night at the last night of Excess Club in Berlin. It was like a kind of new wave punk place. It looked like the Bauhaus video. Bela Lugosi's dead. It was like, it looked like that. And the last night, one of the acts that was supposed to play wasn't there, and I was there at the place with Adrian Wright from the Human League, and one of the promoters of the club came over to us and said, "You've got a guitar, can you go home and get it and come back in half an hour and play?" So I was very, very drunk and drugged at the time, and I said, "Yes, of course," you know, thinking not thinking what these actions would kind of come to, you know. And we did a set of swearing and kind of like, you know, like James Bond themes and things, and then they were, "Oh, that was really interesting," you know. And then later on, they asked us again, you know, do you want to do a gig? And being very drunk and drugged again, I'm like, yeah, and thinking, oh, I don't have a band. I don't know what the hell I'm going to be doing. I'm not a solo performer. I asked my mate, "Hey, Alistair, you know, this English guy that I'd met in the meantime, you know, can you sing?" And he was like, strangers in the night. I went, oh, brilliant, we've got a gig next Wednesday. Come round to our house and I'll show you how to play bass and you can learn how to play bass. And so we wrote 3 songs, one of which we ended up writing in the pub across the road from the SL36. And then we played this gig, you know, and I borrowed a drum machine, like an MFB drum machine, very primitive drum machine with these switches on. And it was playing in my nervousness, and we were very drugged and drunk as well, you know. I twisted the wrong button and it comes some kind of bossa nova beat was playing, and I'm like, what the hell's this? I don't know where we are. We did this gig and everyone was like, that was so avant-garde. and this girl came up, we knew she had a record label called Monogram Records, and she'd released things like Einstürzen and All About and P1A and Malaria, or Mania Day at the time. And she's like, that was brilliant, you know, I want to release your record. And then one thing led to another, and then we became known as the Unbekannten because we got a write-up in one of the papers. It said 2 unknown Englishmen, and so all the people who knew us, they just kind of ridiculed us as the Unbekannten, which means the two unknown Englishmen. And so we ended up being the Unbekannten. And when we went on tour with New Order in 1984, and New Order invited us on their tour, I decided to change our names. I thought people can't say Die Unbekannten. They think it says Die Unbekannten. I thought we wanted to change our sound a little bit anyway, so I changed it to Sharp Vegas. And then Factory Records in America, they were like, oh, interesting track you just done with Bernard. Bernard produced it while we were on the tour with them on tour. That was You Hurt Me. We recorded that at Connie Plank's studio.
Oh, right.
We recorded the most of it here in Berlin, actually, at Harris John's studio. And then we took the tapes to Connie Plank's, and we were thinking, oh, great, Connie Plank is going to come in the studio and help us. And Connie Plank came in, opened the door, and, are you all right, lads? Do anyone like some salad? And that was it. and the studio engineer, this guy called Dave, he had a slip disc. And he had to lie on this kind of an army bed in front of the mixing desk, shouting instructions to Bernard, like, turn down this, turn down this. And it was a fucking right mess what came out. We ended up and we got Strawberry Studios in Manchester to finish it off. Then you should know how I feel each time I see you out with the boys two wrongs don't make it right. Oh no, girl, you hurt me for the last time. I should be hard enough to.
Now, you and Bernard go back a long way because, back in the Manchester days, you supported New Order. You've remixed New Order. You've remixed Bad Lieutenant. There's been an association with Bernard for forever, it seems. Yeah, for over 40 years. Yeah.
I remember. And I was it. So there was a special of the Tube, the show. It was you and Muriel, right, doing East and West Berlin, and I can't remember it, and I remember what a moment. But also, looking back now, there's no shows like that anymore, and I think it's really sad. This is one of the reasons Mark and I do this, because yes, you're an established artist, but you know better than me and Mark. I mean, there's so much new talent that's very good that just there's no platform for them anymore, and I find that incredibly frustrating. But is that the same in Germany right now? Is that just a UK thing, or is it? No.
Yeah. In the past, we only had that 4 channels, and in Germany they only had 2 channels, and you had your segment of like pop music segment on the TV. In Germany we had Formel 1 or something like that, music. What was it? The disco or music or something, Musikladen, I think it's called. And they had these like top programs in the evenings, There was when it's sort of like the internet came around, it seemed to be no necessity for that kind of thing anymore. So kind of we had MTV. In fact, Sharp Vegas actually opened German cable TV.
Oh, really?
Which was, and we were the first thing that people saw on German cable TV officially, right? And it was a program that was in conjunction with Music Box, which was the kind of like the forerunner really to MTV in the UK, and that was where Ray Coates had his first shows and stuff like that, and then it became MTV really as the only kind of music channel. But even that is not even a music channel. MTV is no longer a music channel. You hardly ever see any music on MTV. It's like,
I think
German MTV does actually have just one of the channels of MTV just actually shows music. But in reality, people don't really watch it that much. They watch it on YouTube,
Yeah, the only thing left here is Jules, which is like 5 or 6 episodes a year, and that's it. And I talk to people, like obviously we've spoken to Rusty, our mutual friend, and Tiny Magnetic Pets, and all of them are saying, it's such a shame because back in the day when we were young, you had the Tube, you had Old Grey Whistle Test, just all these platforms. I swear I remember seeing Gary Newman on Top of the Pops when he first arrived. And even my dad went, "Oh, he's bloody cool," so those sort of things. And I just think those opportunities have gone. And there's so many good new bands out there. Like I don't know if you've heard Working Men's Club and bands.
Yeah,
like
great. Yeah, brilliant bands. Yeah.
I mean, I know they're supporting New Order at some point, which is great, but there's so many bands like that just don't get any sort of real airtime. So me and Mark are trying to help it some way, and we're doing quite a bit with some bands. But I just think it's a real shame. But
there used to be live gigs on TV. I remember Oxford Roadshow and all those programs, and you don't really see that. I mean, you've got your own record label, Mark, haven't you? So I mean, you must find it equally hard to have a platform to promote whatever you're.
It's different now. It's very different to even 10 years ago, really.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I don't kind of like chase it. I just put it out and just like let it nurture itself, really. I don't look for like massive, bigger this and kind of marketing and all this crap, because it's like there's so much and there's so many things that kind of like go against that, really. And it's like I like people to discover it. I like people to discover the music. To be honest, I think there's nothing to discover anymore in this world. It's all instant in your face on the internet. So it's like I don't want to make such a massive. I mean, obviously, I want people to be aware that it's there, and I'll send it to people. And if they write about it or they'll present it, or like yourselves doing the show like this, then I'm very happy that it's got to that stage. But I don't kind of force it down people's throats, because I don't think that's not. I don't like. I've never liked that, really. I've never liked that kind of idea of like bigging it up and saying this is the best record ever in the world, because it's like music's a tasteful thing, and it's like you either like it or you don't like it, and at the moment you might not like it, but like we were talking before, next week you might, and it might just be playing at a moment when you're doing something which will just suddenly go bing, and then suddenly all these doors of perception are opened, and I think that is much more enjoyable than if it's just like you open a magazine and it's one advert after the next, and it's every single magazine's got the same picture of the same person, and every magazine's got an advert, and it's like that's not what I'm about.
I love the fact you're very similar to me and Mark in that respect of that discovery piece. Mark and I, we put stuff out on our Facebook page, and so do lots of other people, but the amount of text we say, have you heard this? And look at that, and I still get a buzz out of it. And as you say, that discovery is so good. But and it's really interesting because we've had some great people tweet about our show, which like people like Alison Moyer, Gary Newman. It's like that's amazing. But the best comment I got, or me and Mark got, was this: we did our top 30 albums of 2020.
Yeah.
And this guy here went, I don't know where you guys find this music, but I absolutely love it. I need to have a serious argument with my Spotify algorithm. And I said to Mark, that is all I ever wanted to hear, because that discovery piece, as you say, because you just said music's such an emotive thing. I know algorithms are smart, but they're not emotional, and you can't replace that for me. Nice one. And mate, and look, you've done so many amazing mixes. I mean, I love Vicious Games on the new album, White Walls. I posted that last night, actually, saying because that bass line is just amazing, because the brilliant John Foxx stuff you've done with Underpass. I could go on, but are you the guy driving those collaborations, or are the artists coming to you, or is it kind of a 50-50 thing?
They come to me. I mean, like it's like, like, not unless it's something that I want to do. I mean, like, okay, KVB, for example, the KVB, they were living here at that time when we met up, and and we've kind of like decided to do a collaboration together. And then it was like, I want that this track, you know, I really like this track, and they were like, "Oh, do you want to remix it?" And so, yeah, I'll do a remix for you, you know. And that actually it's a slide bass. I use a slider, you know, on the bass.
Because the thing I like about your remixes is that they're proper remixes. Yeah, they don't feel like, it's probably more of a 90s or a 2000s thing where it was just the drums and the bass were stripped out, and a drum machine was added and a sequence bass line, and that was the dance mix. Yours seemed to be proper. You actually re-envisaged the song and you reworked the song, and that's what I love.
I want people to be able to hear the original elements of the. I mean, you know, it just has to sound like it's the same song but different. You know what I mean? You know, I'm very old school when it comes to remixing. I'd like to take as many of the original elements as possible and use them and adapt them to how I need them to sound.
It doesn't sound like you just lumped something on top of it and a dance beat and called it a remix. It seems like a proper.
It's always so easy to do, isn't it? You know, I mean, like, you know, they get some top and big fee DJ to kind of, you know, like, they just want the name, you know, remixed by so and so, you know, and they just go and look through the files. What have I got that I've not used yet? And they just kind of have some kind of generic house beat or something, and they just whack the vocal in as little as possible, you know, and it doesn't mean anything. And I think that, you know, when people kind of like, I want, you know, like people to be able to enjoy the song equally in my version as they do the original.
Can change. It's up to you.
Because I used to like the Duran Duran in their early singles. They used to bring out night versions of the songs, which were like re-recorded, and like it wasn't just a cut and paste, an instrumental bit on the front of the single and an instrumental bit after the single to make it a 12-inch mix. There was a proper mix. Or the Human League, League Unlimited Orchestra with Martin Rushton. I mean, they were like brilliant. Yeah, you know, thought about mixes, and I think, you know, I don't really want to, I'm not really blowing smoke up your ass, but I mean, you do a proper job on a remix, and it's not just a generic beat laid over the top of a song. So
yeah, well, I think about how I want it to sound. Yeah, and I think about how I'd like it to be. You know, if I wanted to go out and buy it, whatever, I'd want it to sound like that. You know, I just do it so I can. You know, obviously, I hope that the person I've done it for likes it too. Of course.
Have you ever done a remix that you've thought's brilliant that's been like rejected by the band or management or stuff?
Sure. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. You know, where it's like, I mean, I did a remix for some Czech artist who will remain nameless. He didn't even fucking pay me as well for it. You know, he let me do it, and then he just never disappeared, if you like. And he said, "I don't like it. It's rubbish." Fair enough, you know.
The kudos that having your name onto a remix, I think, is phenomenal. So, I mean,
well, you know, it's like there's loads of bands that I think, I'd love to remix that. Yeah.
I was going to say, actually, because I know you work like Anne Clark, you all the Depeche Mode, Marsheaux, you could go on and on. Is there anyone you haven't worked with that's sadly no longer with us, or is with us, that you'd love to do a?
That's a very difficult question. Yeah. I mean, there are loads. Honestly, there are loads of things that I'd like to do. You know, I can't say it's this or this really, to be honest. But you know, it's like things from the past, but there's new stuff as well. There's new bands. I mean, like Working Men's Club for a start. I'd love to remix one of their tracks. I think they're really interesting bands. You know, but there's loads of bands. There's loads of bands that's new bands. You know, I mean, like when you look at my Subversiv-Dekadent album, there's a couple of well-known bands on there, New Order and Yello and stuff. But there's a load of bands that people have never heard of, and I like to kind of give them the opportunity to, to shine, if you like, as well, as much as the ones who are established, because they've already had the accolades. You know, I like younger people to kind of also have the opportunity and kind of fire them on and give them that, a bit of motivation, if you like.
The man in the moon is watching you.
Mate, quick question on this, and I've asked every guest this, and I've got it wrong every time. And I know this is going to be really difficult, especially for someone like you. Desert Island Disc.
Desert Island Disc.
You could take one album on a desert, and I know you're thinking, "Oh, fuck off," but just
I mean, just the other day, I got asked twice. Once about like your top 5 records, and then another one was your top 3 records, and it's absolutely
hard.
Virtually impossible to kind of imagine what's one of your kind of record that I take with me on a desert island. And I've thought about this before. You know, when John Peel had a John Peel's box of records, you know, I was thinking that it'd have to be a bloody suitcase, and it's really really hard to think. But
give us a couple of ones that have really, you know, I know you probably could sit here for hours saying it, but top couple that spring to mind that not necessarily.
Well, I take Brian Eno, Music for Airports. I take that because it's very soothing. You know, it's a very reflective record.
Yeah,
but I've got a load of soundtracks that I'd love to take with me. You know, Psycho by Bernard Herrmann. You know, that's a great soundtrack. I'd love to take that. You know.
Yeah. It's the only reason I ask is you know, you don't. I mean, I can't pigeonhole you so easily because you're so diverse, but certain artists we've interviewed, me and Mark, I reckon they're going to say that, and we've been completely wrong. So we interviewed a guy called Atlas, who's based out in Canada. He's on the Dead Mouse label. A really good guy, and you know, very electronic. And you know, you listen to it, you think, oh, Moby and all these guys are going to inspire him. It was, who was it, Mark? It was someone completely different.
It's Van Morrison.
Van Morrison and
Tom Waits.
Tom Waits, that's right. And you're like, wow. And then Rusty. So we interviewed Rusty. You know, obviously he went to Germany to find Kraftwerk, you probably know, and I know you guys know each other. So I assumed that was going to be Trans-Europe Express or something like that. It was Van Morrison again. Van Morrison seems to be responsible for a lot, completely diverse. It was just bizarre. So I asked the question, but Eno I kind of get. It makes a lot of sense. And I know you pack that up with a lot of other stuff as well.
There's loads. I mean, actually, if you ask me this next week, it'd be completely. That just kind of just came off the top of my head. You know what I mean? But like, you know what I mean? It's like there's a load of records that I love and I play a lot as well, even today. You know, I mean, In the Court of the Crimson King, for example, that's like one of my favorite records. You know, from that period, because it reminds me of my childhood, really, and Jimi Hendrix Electric Ladyland for that matter as well. You know. Those are records that I'd take with me on the desert island. You know?
Yeah, genius. And any couple of memorable gigs for you, like standout gigs that you just gone, wow, that was kind of life affirming, or just as you riveted. Anything that springs to mind?
Kraftwerk's Computer Welt gig in 1981. It was, I think that was like breathtaking. The Residents, that was another brilliant gig. Wow. Rammstein. Was totally fantastic when they played in Berlin at the Wuhlheide about 10 years ago. And fairly recently, a couple of years back, Stolen in China.
Yeah. I've been reading. I know you've got a close affinity with those guys. It's funny to talk about Kraftwerk. I think Mark and I saw him in, when was it, mate? 91?
We saw him on the Mix tour in 91 in Brixton Academy. I think that was probably the last tour with the original lineup, probably. Yeah. But, I mean, it was. You know, I'd like to have seen him on the tour you saw him on, Mark. But I mean, it was like, you know, they had the clean clang thing set up on stage, and it was the proper, you know, how you
did the whole setup.
Exactly.
Red shirts, black ties. Even.
Exactly how you wanted, you know, Kraftwerk to be. You know, it was brilliant.
Robots on stage. You know,
mate, love it. I say it's funny. I mean, I saw Siggy Roz at Ali Pally, which was amazing. But best gig so far, I saw David Byrne at the O2, and I didn't know what to expect. I love Byrne, but mate, he put on a show that I was just
pantomime, isn't it?
Oh. Yeah, on another level. But yeah, Kraftwerk, Computer World, and that is my favourite Kraftwerk album. So I would love to have been on that. Amazing.
Yeah, it was really good. Yeah. Malaria's gigs were great, you know, as well. You know, and obviously Joy Division and New Order gigs, of course, then as well. Yeah, but there's tons of things that I've seen. I feel I'm very privileged that I've been able to see all these gigs from punk times, even beyond that, you know, like rock gigs, like, you know, Kiss in Manchester was actually real theatre. You know, it was like no idea what to expect. It was just like I had a free ticket, so I thought I'll go, and I went to see him, and it was like, you know, they travelled around the whole of Manchester on the back of a truck, kind of like promoting the gig, and I went to see them, and they were actually very entertaining. I was kind of taken aback by it. I went to see Black Sabbath, Gong and people like that in my youth,
Yeah, totally get it, mate. The new album, unbelievable. It's such a good album. What's next for you in terms of new projects, more stuff coming?
I've got quite a few things on the go. Well, that the vinyl's a thing. It's like the fact that there's like a horrible waiting time for vinyls, like 8 months or something. You can't really plan anything, because of it. And it's like, and it's an expense thing as well. It costs a lot. If people want me to do a vinyl, then they have to tell us. And I don't know whether it's really worthwhile me doing it, to be honest. If I make a load of vinyl, is anyone going to buy it? I don't know.
Can you do copies? Do 2 copies, one for me and Andy.
Well, I'd sell 2 copies. Well, the pressing plant won't be very happy if I said test. Like, I want to make 5 copies or something. They'd be a bit kind of.
5. We'll buy a couple, won't we?
I'd like to have it as a vinyl myself. I'm a very physical kind of person. I like to hold it in my hands and feel it and touch it and smell it and play it. There's nothing better. And to me, a download will mean you can't. Can you imagine Christmas comes around and you give someone a download code? It's not the same thing. I like the actual physicality of a vinyl. And the record that I made with Alanas Chosnau, I would love to make that into a vinyl. I think it's in the coming, but I can't tell you exactly when it will be.
Days walk on by, and the nights fly right by without your caress. I feel emptiness. Does anybody feel the same way like me?
Because equally, what's noticeable on your albums is they've all got great artwork, on them, and I guess that's a little bit of a dying art, because on a download or on a CD, like the artwork is kind of a small thing on a screen, whereas on an album, like you look at it and you open it up and everything. But your involvement in the artwork, is that you was in design, wasn't you, when you was in Manchester? Is that sort of a part of that you actively involved in the artwork on your albums, and that's why they're so standout?
Yeah, of course, yeah. I mean, not normally I'll just kind of do a sketch or something, or give whoever the person who I get to like put it all together. I'll do everything for them. They just have to just put it together, so it can be printed off. Because I don't have a program for that actually to put it up together, and I don't really have the time, to be honest, to put it together. Sure. But I'll do the design. I'll say I want it to look like this, and I'll give them the image or whatever, or tell them how I would like it, and then I'll leave it up to them. I want them to also have something from it as well, So it's not just it's my concept and the idea and the image maybe, but I'll give them the chance to be able to show the layout or whatever, I'll tell them, I want it to be like this. I'll give them a little booklet of how it's supposed to look, and it ends up being what it is, Like for my last album, for Subversiv-Dekadent, that was a photograph that I took in East Berlin. It was a May Day parade in East Berlin, and I thought I'd walk in the parade, being from a socialist background, and I walked into this parade, and I was getting towards the podium where the head of state was standing, Erich Honecker, and I thought, I'll take a photograph of him, and just get my camera out, just to put it to my eye to take a photograph. And the Stasi, who've been following me, they just grabbed me and dragged me off, and that photograph and another photograph. That photograph was taken just before, because I got my camera out of my bag. I pressed the shutter and it took that photograph, and then I got the camera to my eye. I didn't even know I'd taken that photograph, to be honest. And then I put my camera to my eye and I just pressed the shutter, and the Stasi caught me. And only later on, when I got the film developed, let me keep the film. And when I got the film developed, then there were 2 photographs. One of the Honecker, very blurred, and this one that I've used for Subversiv-Dekadent. And Subversiv-Dekadent actually was what the Stasi classed me as.
Yeah, it's a great album. I've been telling all our guys on Facebook to get it downloaded. I think it's an amazing piece of work. I know you mentioned Working Men's Club as a band. Any other artists currently are making you sit up and take note, or you kind of...
Well, there's quite a few. You know, obviously the people that I've tried to feature on my album, like Alanas, Chosnau, and Zachary Allen Starkey, you know, any of the Dia from Mexico, and especially Fifi Rong, who's like she performs with Yello. She was on the last Yello album, and she's got a new album coming out, which is really good, really nice, you know, and you know, I just try my best to kind of like feature as many as I can, you know, and give them the opportunity to sort of like have a different audience, I suppose, you know. But there's quite a few, yeah.
Did you go to the Yello tour that they did in 2017?
Yes, I did, yeah.
The only dates they were doing was Austria, Germany, and Switzerland. So I said to Mark and two other guys from our old band, let's go and see them, and we did. And what the sound quality was. Was it? Where do we see? Was it Hamburg?
We went to Hamburg, didn't we?
Yeah.
It was in surround sound.
Oh, it was it was incredible. Like them there, and the sounds coming from over there, and
it was in surround sound, that concert.
Amazing. And I didn't know, and it was Mark at the time, because I've got the poster. They actually signed poster of it. Yeah, that's the first time they toured. I was like, what?
Since that first gig that they did in New York, that was the last time they've ever played.
Yeah. And mate, your new album. I mean, I say everything I've got of yours is. That's what I said to Mark. It's like you're like an artist that you can't seem to do a bad track. I shouldn't say that, but you know what I mean. It's true. Everything you play is a brilliant quality, as Mark says. It seems to be so well engineered, thought through. And
I mean, there's great tracks like, say, the John Foxx Underparts or Sweet's Perfection, Depeche Mode, which are great tracks, and somehow you've made them better.
I don't know about that, but
you've done a mix which is kind of fresh and hasn't spoilt the original and made it a quality remix. So I mean, that's what we like about your.
Well,
remix.
you know, like I have a studio partner, Mr. Adam, who I work with, and you know, together we're a partnership. You know, we do the things together, and without him, I would be, you know, useless probably. But you know, it's like he's a very, very good sound engineer. You know, and we've kind of developed together as a team. Yeah. And we know how to get what we want. He likes the music that I like, and he understands what I want to get. And so, you know, we work together on it. You know, and I think that is really important. I mean, I'm a twin by birth, and I don't like to be on my own. I don't find it rewarding to sit in the studio on my own. I like to be able to bounce the ideas and kind of like, you know, get a kind of opinions and things. And I think that Misha is really good at that, at helping me kind of make a decision. You know, it's because he likes the same kind of music as I do. So it's important. Yeah.
How did you make the transition from like musician to production? Yeah.
Well, I did that from the beginning, really. You know, I mean, when I made the first Unbekannten record, you know, I wanted to know, how do you do it? You know, how do you make a record? And I started then, really. And it's always just been that. And it was only because I probably stopped playing in a band and being a live artist that I just wanted to be more involved in the actual production thing. And when I started MFS in 1990, it just kind of went from there. I mean, before I started MFS, I produced an album in East Germany, the last album of the DDR, as it ended up being. And the East Germans had invited me to make this LP. Really, the Stasi had invited me to, you know, stick a watch over me. But that was one of these kind of like moments where I realised, like, wait a minute, this is serious business. It's not like I'm producing my own record and kind of trial and error. This is I'm producing somebody else's record. And it went from there to being, you know, doing my own label. And all these the time that I was doing the label, I was going into the studio with the artists and kind of guiding them and kind of giving them tips and things like that. And then when I decided to not do my label anymore, I decided to have a break, stop 2008. I was like, I'm fed up, I just want to go back into production. And I just started, I went to Misha to do a track for a soundtrack for a theatre piece. And he'd worked for me at one point very briefly. And so, I knew him from before, and it was like, maybe we can do something else. And then I was asked by John Foxx to do Underpass, and I was like, okay, do that. And there was another chat that I'd done. I think it was Blank and Jones, actually. It was first was Blank and Jones. Yeah. Like, they'd asked me to do a remix for Miracle Cure. And they said, we don't want a trance mix. What you to do is 80s mix. And I'm like, I've been there. I don't really want to do that. I'm like, okay, no, I'll try it. And so I said to Misha, I knew he liked Italo disco and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, do you want to help me do this? And it went really well, really smoothly. And it was a really nice piece of work. And I was like, okay, he's good at this. He can do what I want him to do. And then we were asked to do I'm in Love with the German film star for Pet Shop Boys. And then came John Foxx, and then it just kind of it all started happening then, really. Nice.
And I've seen a couple of times you've done some DJ sets. Is that something now things are opening up, you're going to do more of or less of, or is it just when you feel?
Well, like... I do the DJ sets in conjunction with showing B Movie, which is the documentary film about my life in Berlin, really, and in the 80s. And I take the film around, and after the film's been shown, I give a talk, and after I've done the talk, then we have a party, basically. And usually I try and get the promoters or the people who are doing the event to have a young artist or an established artist even perform, and a young DJ to close the set. And then I play, and I actually just only play my tracks. I don't really play anything else other than the music that I actually produce, because I think, I'm not playing a live gig, but I'm playing the music that I make, so people get to in a club setting, so they can hear it really loud, and it does make a difference. If you've got a really good sound system, it really makes a difference.
I'm asking. I was hoping you'll come over to the UK and do that, and me and Martin come and listen.
Well, I'd love to. I'd love to at some stage.
It'll be amazing. I hope you do. And if you do, let
us
know.
I'll let you know if I'm coming.
I'd love to. Yeah, and actually, I'd love to buy you a beer.
Drug to make the stars come down. You need a drug to make you shine. You need the pills to take you home again.
Mate, I honestly can't thank you enough. It's been an absolute pleasure. Really
very welcome.
Really
thank you.
And anything else you got coming up, let us know, and we'll happily tell everyone.
We've got plenty of things coming up. I mean, like, I've been working with Birmingham Electric on a new record for them, and obviously Stolen, a new record for them. So these things, I don't like talking about the things that I'm doing before I've finished them, really, but they're in the planning. Put it that way.
I can't thank you enough for what you do for musicians, and also the music you give us. It's brilliant. And
thank you.
I read this morning you was described as one of the godfathers of electronic music, and I concur with that totally. I think that what you've done over the last 20, 30 odd years has been phenomenal.
40 years.
You're out.
Wait, Mark, you've been
40 years. Or longer, even longer probably, because when I was working in Virgin Records, it was this little record shop in Manchester. At the time I didn't realise it, but I influenced quite a lot of people's taste because of the music that I have in the shop and play them in the shop. And I knew that I could kind of like manipulate their tastes. Because when you're in a record shop, music always sounds different than when you get it at home.
Excellent. Do you get to the UK much, like, be it socially, or do you?
Well, not recently, no. For one reason or another.
Why is that?
Why? Something happened.
Yeah, something happened.
When you do, mate, let us know, because we'd love to buy you a beer.
You're very welcome.
Or dinner, or both.
Cup of tea. I'm a teaholic.
Yeah, teaholic and some dinner. I'd love to, mate, because I could talk to you forever. So I'd love to. So let us know when you come out. But say anything you're doing, please just drop us a note, and we're happy to tell everyone about it. I think what you do is great.
Thank you.
second chance, this time will be. Every line was a lie, every line was a lie, every line was a lie. I heard so many times before. Every line was a lie.
And I watched through broken windows at the roads I used to know. But without someone to guide me, it's hard to let go. Give me love, but it's suicide. Give me love, but it's suicide. Give me love, but it's suicide.
So I hope you enjoyed that interview with the fabulous Mark REEDER. Mark, thank you, mate, for coming on. Absolute joy to meet you. Hopefully we see you again soon. And hopefully me and Mark will see all you guys soon on the Electronic Cafe. Lots of cool stuff coming. So if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. If you know friends of yours that love music, tell them to come on board to our YouTube channel to subscribe and to sign up for our Facebook community, because it's all about sharing the music. That's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you all soon on the Electronic Cafe. Bye-bye for now.
Thanks for watching the Electronic Cafe. Please can you help us grow and hit the like button if you enjoyed this episode. Please leave a comment and please subscribe. Thanks. See you next time. Take care.